Hare Krishna. Entering to evidence from our last discussion is an excerpt. I'm liberated. This is from a morning walk I had referred to, but here's the actual excerpt. Are you ready?
Yes.
Tamal Kṛṣṇa. Sometimes we have heard Ekadashi. I'd like to give a special recognition to our audio crew. They're working 24/7 to bring this broadcast to both the Inside People's Party, the Outside People's Party, and the really Outside People's Party all over the world. Thank you very much to Chakadola Prabhu, Amrita Sagar Prabhu, who is literally thrown into the sagar of the audio service, and everybody else on the team who is working very hard to make this happen. It's one of the most complex things that you have to do, and they're thinking about that all the time, how to do it. So we're very grateful to all of you. Excellent job. The TV was Chakadola's idea last year too. He introduced it. Give him another hand. And we noticed that his wife works equally as hard. So thanks to her also. Tamal Kṛṣṇa. Sometimes we have heard that Ekadashi is an inauspicious alignment of the planets, and therefore one has to counteract this inauspiciousness by more chanting. Prabhupada laughs. No, it is the most auspicious, and chanting is more effective. Tamal Kṛṣṇa. Oh. Prabhupada, yes. Tamal Kṛṣṇa, I remember you were instructing once that all of your initiated disciples should chant 25 rounds. Prabhupada, minimum. Tamal Kṛṣṇa, minimum on this day? Minimum on this day. Is that a rule we should all follow in our temples? Prabhupada, we are 16 rounds. Tamal Kṛṣṇa, no, I mean on Ekadashi, Prabhupada. Prabhupada, oh yes, Ekadashi, simply you should chant, no other business. Nirjal. Tamal Kṛṣṇa, no preaching work? Should they go out for preaching? Prabhupada, no, those who are preaching, not for them. Those who are sitting idle. And has no other regulation, simply preaching. He says, those who are sitting idle, or they, and there's laughter in a break, has no other regulation, simply preaching. If preaching is so exalted, he hasn't got to follow any regulation. It laughs, but don't take it. And there's more laughter. And actually, if one is busy in preaching work, that is first class. Not my manufactured word, my Guru Maharaj, that Madhva Maharaj, when he was a brahmachari, his name was Hayagriva, so he was to go somewhere. So he was sick. Guru Maharaj was informed that he was sick, and today is Ekadashi. He cannot take his regular meals. So Guru Maharaj said, no, let him take immediately meals and go. So the key one was, he said, a preacher is so exalted he hasn't got to follow any regulation, but don't take it. That's the balance, right? Thank you very much. So we're continuing with our reading of the Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, and so far we've made it up to the fourth, we're on the Madhya Lila, we're on the 6th chapter. Surprising. How did we get there? I don't know how it's possible. And the chapter is entitled The Liberation of Sārvabhauma Bhattacharya. We're continuing at text number 47. Begging permission from Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu and his devotees, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then went with Gopinathacharya to take lunch. After finishing their lunch, they returned to Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Offering his obeisances to Lord Caitanya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, Namo Narayanaya. I offer my obeisances to Narayan. In return, Caitanya Mahāprabhu said, Krishna matir astu. Let your attention be on Krishna. The purport is the etiquette among sannyāsīs, those on the 4th platform of spiritual life, to offer respects by saying Om Namo Narayanaya. I offer my respectful obeisances to Narayan. This greeting is used especially by Mayavadi sannyāsīs According to the Smriti scriptures, a sannyāsī should not expect anything from anyone, nor should he consider himself identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vaishnava sannyāsīs never think of themselves as being one with the Lord. They always consider themselves eternal servants of Krishna, and they want to see everyone in the world become Krishna conscious. For this reason, a Vaishnava sannyāsī always offers his blessings to everyone, saying, Kṛṣṇa matir astu. Everyone please say, may you become Krishna conscious. Hearing these words, Sārvabhauma understood Lord Chaitanya to be a Vaishnava sannyāsī. Sārvabhauma then said to Gopinath-acharya, I want to know Caitanya Mahaprabhu's previous situation. Purport: the word purvashraya refers to one's previous situation in life. Sometimes a person will accept the renounced order from householder life, and sometimes even from student brahmachari life. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wanted to know of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's previous situation as a householder. Gopinath-acharya replied, there was a man named Jagannath who was a resident of Navadvip and whose surname was Mishra Purandara. Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the son of that Jagannath Mishra, and his former name was Vishwambar Mishra. He also happens to be the grandson of Nilambar Chakravarti. The Bhattacharya said, Nilambar Chakravarti was a classmate of my father, Maheshwar Visharada. I knew him as such. Jagannath Mishra Purandara was respected by my father. Thus, because of their relationship with my father, I respect both Jagannath Mishra and Nilambar Chakravarti. Hearing that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu belonged to the Nadia district, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became very pleased and addressed the Lord as follows. You are naturally respectable. Besides, you are a sannyāsī. Thus I wish to become your personal servant. Purport: a sannyāsī is always to be worshipped and offered all kinds of respect by the grihastas, householders. However, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was older than Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Sarvabhauma respected him as a sannyāsī and as one who has attained the topmost platform of spiritual ecstasy. Thus the Bhattacharya certainly accepted him as his master. As soon as Caitanya Mahaprabhu heard this from the Bhattacharya, he immediately remembered Lord Vishnu and began to speak humbly to him as follows. Because you are a teacher of Vedanta philosophy, you are the master of all the people in the world and their well-wisher as well. You are also the benefactor of all kinds of sannyāsīs. Purport: because the Mayavadi sannyāsīs teach Vedanta philosophy to their students or disciples, they are customarily called Jagat Guru. This indicates that they are the benefactors of all people. Although Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was not a sannyāsī, but a householder, he used to invite all the sannyāsīs to his home and offer them prasadam. Thus, he was accepted as the best well-wisher and friend of all the sannyāsīs. I am a young sannyāsī and I actually have no knowledge of what is good and what is bad. Therefore, I am taking shelter of you and accepting you as my spiritual master. I have come here only to associate with you, and I am now taking shelter of you. Will you kindly maintain me in all respects? The incident that happened today was a great obstacle for me, but you have kindly relieved me of it. The Bhattacharya replied, do not go alone to see the deity at the Jagannath temple. It is better that you go with me or my men. The Lord said, I shall never enter the temple, but shall always view the Lord from the side of the Garuda Stamba. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then told Gopinath-acharya, take Goswamiji and show him Lord Jagannath. Also, the apartment belonging to my maternal aunt is in a very solitary place. Make all arrangements for him to stay there. Thus Gopinath-acharya took Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu to his residential quarters and showed him where to find water, tubs, and water pots. Indeed, he arranged everything. The next day, Gopinathacharya took Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu to see the early rising of Lord Jagannath. The next day, Gopinathacharya took Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu to see the early rising of Lord Jagannath. Gopinathacharya then took Mukundadatta with him and went to Sārvabhauma's house. When they arrived, Sārvabhauma addressed Mukundadatta as follows: "The sannyāsī is very meek and humble by nature, and his person is very beautiful to see. Consequently, my affection for him increases." Purport: Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya considered Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu a very humble and meek person, because although Caitanya Mahāprabhu was a sannyāsī, he still retained his brahmachari name. The Lord took sannyas from Keshava Bharati in the Bharati Sampradaya, in which the brahmacharis, the assistants of the sannyāsis, are named Caitanya. Even after accepting sannyas, Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu retained the name Caitanya, meaning a humble servant of a sannyāsi. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya appreciated this very much. From which sampradaya has he accepted the sannyas order, and what is his name? Gopinathacharya replied, "The Lord's name is Sri Krishna Caitanya." What's his name? And his sannyas preceptor is the greatly fortunate Keshava Bharati. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "Sri Krishna is a very good name, but he belongs to the Bharati community. Therefore he is a second-class sannyasi." Gopinathacharya replied, "Sri Krishna Caitanya Mahāprabhu does not rely on any external formality. There is no need for him to accept the sannyas order from a superior sampradaya." Purport: Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu accepted sannyas from the Bharati Sampradaya, which belonged to the disciplic succession of Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya introduced names for his sannyas disciples, and these are 10 in number. Out of these, the surnames Tirtha, Ashrama, and Saraswati are considered topmost. In the monastery at Sringeri, the surname Saraswati is considered first class, Bharati second class, and Puri third class. A sannyasi who has very nicely understood the slogan Tattvamasi, and who takes his bath at the confluence of the rivers Ganges, Jamuna, and Saraswati is called a Tirtha. A person who is very eager to accept sannyas, who is detached from worldly affairs, who has no desire for any kind of material facilities, and who is thus saved from repeated birth and death, is known as ashrama. When a sannyasi lives in a beautiful solitary place in the forest and is freed from all material desires, he is called vana. A sannyasi who always lives in the forest and renounces all connection with the world in order to be elevated to the heavenly planets, where he can live in the Nandana Kanana, is called Aranya. One who prefers living in the mountains, engaging in the study of the Bhagavad Gita, and whose intelligence is fixed, is called Giri. One who prefers living in great mountains, even among ferocious animals, to attain the summit of philosophical speculation, understanding that the essence of this material world is useless, is called Parvat. A sannyasi who has dipped into the ocean of the absolute truth and collected some valuable stones of knowledge from that ocean, who never falls down from the regulative principles of a sannyasi, is called Sagara. One who has learned the classical art of music, who engages in its culture, and who has become expert and completely aloof from material attachment, is called Saraswati. Saraswati is the goddess of music and learning, and in one hand she holds a musical instrument called a veena. A sannyasi who is always engaged in music for spiritual elevation is called Saraswati. One who has become completely educated and is freed from all kinds of ignorance, and who is never unhappy, even in a distressed condition, is called Bharati. One who has become very expert in absolute knowledge, who is situated in the absolute truth, and who never discusses the absolute truth, is called Puri. And who always discusses the absolute truth is called Puri. All these sannyasis are assisted by brahmacharis, who are described as follows: one who knows his real identity and is fixed in his particular occupational duty, who's always happy in spiritual understanding, is called Swarup-brahmachari. One who completely knows the Brahman effulgence and is always engaged in this practice of yoga is called Prakash-brahmachari. One who has acquired absolute knowledge and who always meditates on the absolute truth, knowledge, the unlimited, and the Brahman effulgence, thus keeping himself in transcendental bliss, is called Ananda-brahmachari. One who is able to distinguish between matter and spirit, who is never disturbed by material transformations, and who meditates on the unlimited, inexhaustible, auspicious Brahman effulgence, is a first-class, learned brahmachari and is named Caitanya. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was talking with Gopinathacharya about the Sri Kṛṣṇa Caitanya Mahāprabhu sannyas community, when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was talking with Gopinathacharya about Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's sannyas community, he appreciated the first name, Sri Kṛṣṇa, but he did not like the surname Caitanya, which is the name for a brahmachari belonging to the Bharati community. He therefore suggested that the Lord be elevated to the Saraswati community. However, Gopinathacharya pointed out that the Lord does not depend on any external formality. Gopinathacharya was firmly convinced that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself and therefore independent of any external ritual or formality. If one wants to engage in pure devotional service, he does not require titular superiority as a Bharati or Saraswati. The Bhattacharya inquired, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is in his full-fledged youthful life. How can he keep the principle of sannyas? I shall continually recite Vedanta Sutra before Caitanya Mahaprabhu so that he may remain fixed in his renunciation and thus enter upon the path of monism. Purport. According to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, among sannyasis, the cultivation of Vedanta philosophy helps in becoming detached from sense gratification. Thus, a sannyasi can protect the prestige of wearing a loincloth, kopina. One has to practice sense control as well as mind control and subdue the 6 forces of speech, mind, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals. Then one can become expert in understanding the devotional service of the Lord, and thus become a perfect sannyasi. For that purpose, one must cultivate knowledge and renunciation regularly. When one is attached to material sense gratification, he cannot protect his sannyas order. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya suggested that by the study of vairagya, renunciation, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu might be saved from the clutches of full-fledged youthful desire. It just came into my mind, and looking at the situation, it reminds me of a Shakespearean comedy, when oftentimes the identities of the characters are concealed to the other characters, but the audience knows who they are. And then there's a comedy of mismatch and errors and that. And we all know what's coming. So throughout this section, seeing that Caitanya Mahaprabhu is playing the part of a innocent young sannyasi, and how later in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, after he sees, or as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sees his forearm form as Lord Narayan, Vrindavan Das Thakur has it that the Lord says to him, do you still think I'm unqualified? That's funny. So the whole thing has that little comedic tension to it, doesn't it? May I put this back on again? Thank you very much. Nice work. Had to be done. Everyone okay? The outside people's party's always okay. Okay, 76. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then suggested, if Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu would like, I could bring him into a first-class sampradaya by offering him saffron cloth and performing the reformatory process again. Purport, the Bhattacharya wanted to reinstate Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu into the Saraswati Sampradaya because he did not like the Lord's belonging to the Bharati Sampradaya or Puri Sampradaya. Actually, he did not know the position of Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Caitanya Mahāprabhu did not depend on an inferior or superior Sampradaya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead remains in the supreme position in all circumstances. Gopinathacharya and Mukunda Datta became very unhappy when they heard this. Gopinathacharya therefore addressed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya as follows. My dear Bhattacharya, you do not know the greatness of Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu. All the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are found in him to the highest degree. Purport. Since the Bhattacharya was an impersonalist, he had no idea of the absolute truth beyond the impersonal effulgence. However, Gopinathacharya informed him that Caitanya Mahāprabhu was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who know the absolute truth know it in 3 phases, as explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 1-11. Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam prameti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. Those who are in knowledge of the non-dual absolute truth know very clearly what is Brahman, what is Paramatma, and what is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Shat Aishvarya Purna, complete with 6 opulences. Gopinathacharya emphasized that all those 6 opulences were completely existing in Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Gopinathacharya continued. Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu is celebrated as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are ignorant in this connection find the conclusion of knowledgeable men very difficult to understand. And now we'll take a few reflections or questions.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question. So my understanding is that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the head priest for Jagannath Puri temple. How is it possible that a Mayavadi becomes the head priest of a Jagannath Puri temple? And my understanding is that's a Vaishnava temple, and they're all devotees there who do not consider Lord being impersonal. So how do we understand that him being the head priest, and he's offering prasad, like he's giving prasadam to everyone and distributing prasadam and everything. So how is it that he's a Mayavadi and he became the head priest?
Probably so that we'd have this pastime. Lord Chaitanya would come and liberate him. Well, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wasn't just the head priest for the temple. He was the most famous pundit in all of India. And he was known for his erudite scholarship. So he was highly respected. He had thousands and thousands of disciples everywhere. In fact, it's mentioned how he could memorize a book. He'd just read it once and he'd know the whole book all the way through. So he was highly revered. And obviously, although he had his stage of realization, which was contaminated by Mayavad, he was able to move in any circle because he had so much knowledge. We saw that earlier when he looked at Caitanya Mahāprabhu and he goes, oh yeah, he's a Vaishnava, and right now he's in a trance of pure love for Krishna. So it was hardly, he was highly exalted in all of society, and people regarded him very highly, as far as his realization of Lord Jagannath. Even today, you go to Rath Yatra, you see that there's millions of people there. And they all come for their different purposes. Madhavananda Prabhu was talking about how everyone comes to see Lord Jagannath. And the Buddhists come, they worship him. The Mayavadis worship him. Everybody. So even some Christians come. And they all have different conceptions because he fulfills the desires of everyone. Ye yatamam prapadyante. But he really was known as he was one of the most famous people in India. You can look him up. Even now, history shows Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was revered throughout all scholarly circles. So that gave him some stature. Yes?
Even now the Shankaracharya is the one who decides on matters.
Yeah. When you go to Rath Yatra, then you think if everything's going to start, and then they put up a stage and all these dignitaries, politicians get up there and give speeches for hours. And it starts off with the Shankaracharya, the appointed person of that Sringeri Math, talking, and they're not necessarily talking about Srimad Bhagavatam as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Yes?
Right, that the word came Deul, how to pronounce the Bengali when we're reading that Caitanya Mahāprabhu was entering to the temple. So I found some Bengali devotee to transcribe.
Okay.
Can
please. And what's the context again? What do you...
Deul, like the temple, when Jagannath, when he was trying to go to the Jagannath temple, that word came Deul. And we were wondering
Deul,
how to pronounce that.
Okay.
জগন্নাথের দেউল দেখি আবিষ্ট হইলা দণ্ডবত করি প্রেমে নাচিতে লাগিলা.
Deul.
Even though actually the word, the way it is spelled, it should be deula, but in Bengali we don't pronounce it, the last o, many times it is silent, so it will be pronounced as deul.
Deul. Thank you very much. Nice research. We get you a research grant. Okay, Madhav. Okay, I see the hands in the outside people's party. I'll come next. Madhav's going now, and then I'll pass it to you.
I had a similar question like Prabhu, that if Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a Mayavadi, and he thought that God is formless and all, then how did he see Jagannath? But my other question was, why did Caitanya Mahāprabhu not cross the Garuda Stamba?
He had gone into the temple in the first visit and wanting to embrace the Lord, and in ecstasy he fainted, and it caused such a ruckus that the custodian, the temple commander, came with a stick, wanted to beat him. And that came just a few pages ago, where they were discussing how Sarvabhauma said, "Don't go without my men," and Caitanya Mahāprabhu said, "No, I'll stay back," and he would stay near the back. And it just reminds me, although it's not a direct answer to your question, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was known to have stood by the Garuda Stamba in the temple oftentimes, because according to the Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, he said when Krishna looks out, he'll look for his devotee Garuda, and then he'll see me standing next to him, and I'll be seen. And he had this whole idea about darshan, that we're not going to see the Lord, we're going to be seen by the Lord. That's not implied in the text here of why. The main reason was because he felt he couldn't control his ecstasy, so he stayed back. Okay, on the outside I saw a few hands.
Yeah. I just wanted to say a thought. I love this exchange between Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Caitanya Mahāprabhu so much. I feel it's so exemplary pastime to show how important the culture of respect is. Like we're discussing how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a Mayavadi sannyāsī, but he had such a paka culture of respect, and he offered obeisances to Lord Nityananda. He respected Caitanya Mahāprabhu and took care, and that ultimately earned him the credits to get the mercy of the Lord. And similarly, the exchange of Caitanya Mahāprabhu accepting him as a spiritual master and seeing himself in the position of a student and giving him all respect in that way is just so beautiful. that I feel no matter who we are or where we are or what we're doing, we always need to be respectful, because we don't know whom we're dealing with or what will evolve or what can happen.
True.
Like that.
That's so important. I think it's one of the most important lessons we've extracted so far. Akshobhyatirtha all the way in the back. Thank you very much, Mataji. That was really nice lesson to take away.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. So that was actually my question, like Caitanya Mahaprabhu saying that please accept me as your spiritual master. For us, like neophytes, it's like, okay, we already have a spiritual master. Like, is it a dīkṣā guru? Is it like, what is he really implying? He's just paying respect. That's one. The other thing is, what were the first few words that they exchanged when Caitanya Mahaprabhu came to consciousness? I probably skipped it. Maybe I was, dozing off or something. Sorry about that. But what did they say something to each other? Like, what were the first few words that Sārvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and then Caitanya Mahaprabhu replied?
Well, in one case, he said, Sārvabhauma said to Lord Chaitanya, Om Namo Narayanaya.
Yes.
And that's what Mayavadis do, because they say everybody's Narayan, but especially a sannyāsī, because he's liberated. Therefore, the real Narayan-ness is coming out. And then Lord Chaitanya said back to him, Krishna Matirastu, may you always remember Krishna. Noting, so he could note, Sarvabhauma was astute, so he noted, oh, he's a Vaishnava sannyāsī. But other than that, he said, Haribol, when he came back to consciousness. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that's really interesting, because even when Caitanya Mahaprabhu reminds him that Krishna is something we need to acknowledge, and Narayan is fine for you, but Caitanya Mahaprabhu stuck to his tradition.
Right.
Sometimes we say Radhe Radhe, which is fine. I mean, it's a commonplace term when we use it in the Dham. When people call out, we also say Hare Krishna, but sometimes we say Radhe Radhe also, so it gets a little... but I really like the fact that Caitanya Mahaprabhu was very clear. It's Krishna all the way.
Well, Malati told me, Malati Devi, the venerable disciple of Prabhupada, once I was sending texts out to everybody when I was leaving for Vrindavan. I was putting Radhe Radhe on everything. And she wrote me back and she said, a quote from Prabhupada, a direct quote, Prabhupada said, they say Radhe Radhe, we say Hare Krishna. Yes, but it is telling what people use as their sign-off or greeting, especially in any circle. You can kind of tell where people are from, but in spiritual circles, it obviously in the context it's very clear who's who. Yeah, nice point.
And about
Anybody
the
else?
spiritual master part, like that was just dīkṣā guru request?
Well,
or?
Mahaprabhu's playing a role here. And you could say it's in the scheme of bringing Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya into the fold of his movement. It's preaching doesn't just mean talking. It means how you interact with people. And when we go on Sankirtan, we're enjoined to put people on a vyasasana and worship them so that they don't feel that we're condescending. This is the advice of the great Acharya, who said when you go to talk to people about Krishna, first tell them that they're the most exalted people in the world, and I want to learn from you. And once their ego has been dropped, then you can tell them, please forget everything you've learned. Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Not exactly like that, but the point is that when devotees are interacting with others, especially those who are not yet Krishna conscious, they are very gentle and non-condescending, and that brings people closer. It's an attractive quality. People want to know more and more who you are, what you know, and where you got to be where you are because of your character. And that's what happened with Caitanya Mahāprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He saw this beautiful sannyāsī, all opulent, and then that sannyāsī saying, oh no, you're my spiritual master, please teach me. And that's the positioning And so it has nothing to do with the formality of dīkṣā. It's more about their spontaneous relationship in Mahaprabhu, wanting to bring him to the point of Sārvabhauma using his paternal instinct towards Caitanya Mahāprabhu as a young sannyāsī to get the sukṛti in order to open his heart and understand Krishna. Does that help? Akshobhyatirtha doesn't have the mic anymore, but you can just raise your hand if it helps. Okay. Yes, Nitya Tarangani. And also I want to acknowledge Nitya Tarangani and Ramesh for doing so much work with the broadcasting too, working tireless behind the scenes. Hare Krishna.
I have some comments and or reflections from online, but before, can I share my own personal reflection, Maharaj?
Please, keep the microphone as close as possible.
Okay. So, in one of the purports we read, Prabhupada mentioned how Sārvabhauma Bhattacharya, because he was an impersonalist, he has no idea of absolute truth beyond the effulgence. Then I was remembering the verse from Ishopanishad, Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukham. So I was just really appreciating how Ishopanishad guides us towards the perfection. There is something beyond the impersonal effulgence which we need to aspire for, the personal form of Krishna, the Purusha form. And I am just glad that I'm part of ISV and where we recite these verses every week, and now I am personally experiencing through Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya pastime how important it is to pray for that perfection.
Yeah, a great point. I'm just going to give a quick anecdote because it fits so well here. When Prabhupada first came to India, he invited Western disciples, because that's all he had, to come to India to help him get started in India. And several of them who had taken sannyas, they were young boys, had gone to South India to preach. And they had been going around to different villages, and in one place, one city, they had organized a debate. And there was these pundits there that represented the village, and they debated with our ISKCON sannyāsīs who were quite obviously Americans. And in the debate, the devotees were representing Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy, and the town pundit was a Mayavadi. I can't give all the details because I don't know all the details. I just know the crescendo was that the devotees had already memorized the Sri Upanishad, and during the debate where the Mayavadis were trying to establish that God's impersonal, the devotees, especially Chutananda Swami, had quoted this verse, Hiranmayena patrena satyasa pihitam mukham. It said face. It says face right here, and it's an Upanishad, and the Mayavadis have to accept that because it's from the Upanishads. And the crowd went wild, and the reporters were there, and it got in the paper that these Western boys who had taken sannyas came and defeated this venerable person with a verse from the Upanishads, and they had quoted the Sanskrit. And when Prabhupada saw that, he was so pleased with them. One of my godbrothers, who was part of that party, had told me when he had first gone to India and they were going to all the darshans, he said Prabhupada barely ever looked at him, what to speak of talk to him. But after that, when they got in the paper and they came back, he said that he communicated with him a lot and promoted all of them in their service and so forth. So that just fits well with your realization about the verse. Please go ahead. You had another point.
Yes. Going to our online audience, we have 21 devotees online.
Haribol.
So the first question is from Sri Antariksha Prabhu. He wants to know, why did Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya specifically asked about the Atma Rama verse?
It's a famous verse, for one thing, because it establishes the transcendental nature of Shastra. But other than that, I don't have any specific commentary of why he chose that. We can look into it, Sri Antariksha. Yes, you have? Madhav is about this? Another question. I'll come right back to you. Go ahead.
The next one is from Vaikuntanayak Prabhu. His question is, why did Mahaprabhu take sannyas initiation from a Mayavad Sampradaya? Does it not send confusing signals to the spiritual seekers? They might cite this instance to wrongly believe that Mayavad is the topmost philosophy and that personalism or Vaishnavism is a subordinate philosophy.
They would be hard put to do that, given that Caitanya Mahāprabhu, after taking that sannyas, had defeated Sarvabhauma, who was a Mayavadi. And other than that, Caitanya Mahāprabhu took sannyas for a very specific reason. It was so that he would garner respect from the people in general. And the main accepted way of taking sannyas was in the Shankaracharya Sampradaya at that time. So it was not an ontological decision, but it was meant to attract people in general so that they would get the sukṛti of honoring him. Rather than what was happening then, as he started to show his godhood and the people around him started denigrating him, saying, "Who do you think you are?" And then he realized that he needed to change his preaching strategy. So he went off and took sannyas. There are other reasons why he took sannyas. Maya brigam dayiti ipsitam anvadava. Karabhajana Muni says he also did it just to run after Krishna, because he wanted to go and search for his Lord, Shyamasundar. But that's the primary reason why he took sannyas in that sampradaya, because it was very popular at the time. And once you take that, even now, if you walk in India as a sannyasi, I've walked with godbrothers before who are in sannyasi vesh, and everyone bows down, opens the door, brings you stuff, whatever. And if you can see it now, imagine 500 years ago. And Caitanya Mahāprabhu then took sannyas, and then that changed the way people interacted with him. Were you done?
I have last one. This is from Christopher Stilwell. He says, sublime as always, much love and gratitude from a tiny soul in Brighton, UK.
Brighton, UK key. Thanks for tuning in from Brighton. Hare Krishna. Madhav, you had a point?
I had a question, just to clarify. So if Sārvabhauma Bhattacārya was a Mayavadi, how would he see Jagannath? Would he see him like the Lord of the universe? Or if he didn't believe in the Lord, how would he?
How would he see Jagannath?
Yeah.
Well, in the Gita, Krishna says, Ye yatam mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. That however people worship me or interact with me, I respond accordingly. So those they're Mayavadis, plenty of them worship the form of the Lord. They just, as you know, you've heard it many times, Prabhupada said that the president of India at the time was named Dr. Radhakrishna. And he wrote his own commentary in Bhagavad Gita, but he was a Mayavadi. So he's a form of Krishna. It's the unborn within Krishna. That's what we worship. So Mayavadis worship form, but they think that it's to get him to the formless. So that's one of the ways that Mayavadis look at the form of the Lord. The whole discussion about Sārvabhauma, he's obviously a covered devotee. Yes, Prabhu.
In general, Mayavadis, for them, Brahman touched by goodness are all these deities. Brahman touched by passion are all the living entities. And Brahman touched by ignorance is the material world. So that's generally how the Mayavadis view these. So for them, the deities are higher than the living entities. Just that for you to go from passion to goodness, they're helpful, like that.
Thank you. Very helpful.
So we can all get there. I mean, that's the logic, you know?
Yeah.
Get purified. Or what I heard once, that they revere Jagannath as the highest manifestation of Brahman.
Yeah. Did you have a point?
Yeah, they see him as Saguna Brahman. So it's just a perspective. They say Nirguna is the top, but there is Saguna Brahman, and that's also particular manifestation. But there is a difference between Mayavadis who are offensive. They say actually the Lord, when he comes as Krishna and all the avatars, they say that they are not real, they are Maya. And that's offensive. But those who are just monists or impersonalists, they don't consider that. They accept this as a Saguna Brahma, it's transcendental, but they're just not interested. They're more interested in the effulgence. So, and on the point of Mahaprabhu taking sannyas from a Mayavadi Sampradaya, that was available around. There was no one else from, like the Vaishnava sannyas from South India. But they claim, I mean, I heard a small clip from the present Shankara in Puri, and he was saying he's one of our men about Caitanya Mahāprabhu. And he said, I read Caitanya Charitamrita, I don't remember the number, but it was around 70 times. He said, I read Caitanya Charitamrita. And he was speaking very glorifying Caitanya Mahāprabhu, saying that he's in our sampradaya. I just wonder, how when you read so many times Caitanya Charitamrita and you don't become a devotee, but he's in that, he's coming in that line. So, but I appreciated what you said in the beginning, that we're so fortunate that Prabhupada brought this wonderful book to us. And even if we knew Bengali, most probably we won't get the meaning. We can get it wrong, like someone else is reading and they think, yeah, he's impersonalist Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Even I remember there was another book somewhere when I was in Bhaktivedanta College in the library. I just picked it up and there was some articles and there was one speaking, I didn't know who is the author, on Caitanya Charitamrita, and then also coming to the same conclusion that of impersonalists, that Caitanya Mahāprabhu was outwardly Vaishnava, but actually, and the proof, one of the proofs was, and we will come now, the chapter after in Ramananda Samvat, in the discussion when he came to the pinnacle of reciting his poetry about this the Mahabhava mood, and Mahaprabhu put his hand, and his interpretation was, you cannot say more, because more is you and me are one. It's the ultimate conclusion is we are one, and it's just so twisted to interpret that, but that's they believe, and they're very scholarly and explain it. This is what's the meaning here, the most esoteric meaning.
When Krishna leaves the world, he leaves the material body behind. And why would he do that? Because Samoham sarvabhuteshu nami dveshosti napriya. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm equal to everyone, I give everyone an equal opportunity to use their independence in the way they want to do. And if some people want to worship Krishna as a materialistic person, like as a itam satam brahma sukhana bhutya dasyam katanam paradaivatena mayashitanam naradarakena sakam brijaru krita punya punja. Shukadev said everyone sees him differently according to their disposition. And so why does Krishna leave a material body by the side when he gets shot in the foot by an arrow? And how would he die from getting shot in the foot by an arrow as the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And our acharyas say that there are those that want to remain atheistic, so he gives an opportunity for them. That if you would like to maintain that, I'll give you that opportunity. I mentioned it in context with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary about chanting the holy name, and how not every Vaishnava who chants the name gets the immediate result. And he says, does Vishwanath, that's to leave some room for the Gyanis and Karmis so they don't get discouraged on their path. Because if they see every Vaishnava chanting and all of a sudden they become perfect, then they may become discouraged and not be able to use their free will to be Gyanis and Karmis. One other point, a while back, Lokaram Prabhu had unearthed a paper by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and it was a paper about 3 ways that one can interact with Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says for our worldwide preaching of Caitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, we have to allow for 3 categories of people and the way that they see Caitanya Mahāprabhu. One way is the way we see him as Swayam Bhagavan, coming to fulfill his inner purposes and his external purposes. And then other people will see him as a saint. And then other people will see him as a reformer, that he came at a particular time to overthrow the oppressive social system where only brahmanas could be this or that and everybody else was left out. And then he elaborates on the mentalities of these 3 types of people. But he says all of them get benefit from interacting with Caitanya Mahāprabhu in their own way, because Caitanya Mahāprabhu is so merciful and he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They have to start somewhere. And that was Sārvabhauma's approach, that, okay, he sees me as this, I'll interact with him in that way and gradually bring him to pure devotional service. You have a point? Okay, last one, because it's 1 o'clock.
Also in the Kṛṣṇa book, or 10th canto, Kṛṣṇa entered the arena with the wrestling, like King Kamsa, and it was described that many people there saw Kṛṣṇa in different ways. Like some saw him as, their son, some saw them in different ways like that.
Yeah, that's a good citation, and it goes to that point in Jagannath Puri. Madhavananda Prabhu talks about everybody comes to see Lord Jagannath, and they all have their own agenda. There was one last point. I already alluded to this before about the professor who the devotees met on campus in Colorado, and he taught religion, and so he helped them. He got a lot of sukṛti because he liked them. He had been a follower of the Dalai Lama for many years and was interested in Buddhism, and his philosophy was anatma, that there is no soul ultimately. And he had read Prabhupada's books, all the Bhagavatam and all the Chaitanya Charitamrita twice, and he wasn't a devotee. He read Vishaka's book about nature and Bhagavad Gita. You know that book? And he read one verse about the soul, and all of a sudden he just converted. He became a Vaishnava. And those who are anatma, they have a sense of there being no God, no soul, and so forth. They come in contact with devotees, they could be in big trouble. He wrote the Dalai Lama and asked if he could become a devotee, and the Dalai Lama gave his blessings. So whichever path you want to follow, he said, this devotee told me that the Dalai Lama is okay with it. But another conversion story, and they're real life. It's not just pie in the sky Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya story from, to hype up the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It actually happened, and it's still happening to people who are academically, intellectually endowed, and then they come in contact with devotees, start chanting Hare Krishna, a little prasadam, next thing you know, they're gone. Okay, really last point.
Somehow it seems that the befriending part works better than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did both. He conquered him first with his humility and his submissiveness and his inquiry, and then later on also philosophically, and by showing his real Brahman, he's the real deal. For us, how to interact with person of that genre, because we know that the demons incarnate in Kali Yuga, in Brahmin families, and scholars, religionists, theologians. There's many of them who are agnostics or atheists, and and preach that. So how should we interact with them? Just be nice with them and encourage them and befriend them, or engage in debate? What should be our strategy? Because we see a lot of these debates going wrong, and sometimes even the devotees kind of not coming out on the upper hand.
Well, I mean, if you're asking me, we have to look for an opening.
Yeah.
And if there's not an opening, we try to force our way in, then people take it, we're condescending. And a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Can lead a man to wisdom, but you can't make him think. And so I always feel that your approach, which is befriending people and looking for an opening, is always the best way. And everybody's individual, you don't know. Like the professor who became a devotee, devotees just kept giving him as much as he would take. And they really didn't push, no, but you have to be a Vaishnava. They just said, here, why don't you read all these and have some prasadam and you can chant with us and so forth. And at a certain point, somebody might then become vulnerable and ask something about it, and then you can do more. We've been talking to some academics. We've been reaching out to a lot of people and just seeing if they want to talk. And we have these Zoom sessions. And it's just an interesting project, because some people, like when the first professor we talked to, he's a social psychologist, and he wanted to talk to us. And I sent him my book, or the team members sent him my book to read, and so we talked, and he said, yeah, I'm an atheist. But then after the second session, he told us, but I meditate. So then we sent him the Yoga Sutras from Patanjali. And then after that, we had to do a meditation session. And in that, of course, the meditation session, you could slip in anything. I mean, I'm just saying that, like, where's the corridor you're going to go down? And just keep looking for the opening and say, okay, well, here it is. All the while just going along with what they have available, and then you never know. That's why it's so exciting to preach. You never know what's going to happen. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, Shri Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radhe Shyam, dear Giriraj Maharaj, if you so desire, please enlighten our hearts how to preach to Mayavadis, atheists, people who have a grihavrat in this world, so that their hearts can open, they can embrace Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu and dance in ecstasy and distribute it around the world themselves. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Vanchakalpadurusha Kripa Sindhabhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. We'll see you all back here at 4 p.m. Hare Krishna.